Well, we are wrapping up our theme this month of a complaint-free world. In particular, we're doing a complaint-free Alpine. So we are all wearing our purple bracelets. If you don't have one yet, they're available on the back afterward, I'm sure. And so we're on the fourth stage of unconscious competency. And as I put in the thought for the week that, we all have experiences in life as little toddlers. We are learning and growing and getting one thing or another under our belts, so to speak, to the point that, when we tie our shoe or brush our teeth, we really don't have to stop and think about it. It's unconscious competency. That's what it is. And yet, our thoughts and our feelings that are coming forth after our thoughts, with the emotions that come up for us, those are a little bit more challenge to become competent at what we want to think and talk about that we want versus what we don't want. We've all created habits in our lives, and some of them aren't the most helpful. And some of us have generated habits where we are sarcastic and thinking that's funny, and yet we recognize that that too comes in the realm of a complaint. So I've told you each Sunday what day I'm on. We have the concept is to have 21 days in a row without complaining. I started mine on about July 4th, 5th, something like that. This is July 28th, and on day 3 again. I think I've said day 3, I don't know how many times since I've been up here. Something about the traffic. The traffic got me this last time. And I had to admit that was a complaint. Sometimes, I try to scoot around it if I just want to do one little exclamation when I'm watching the Padre game. I don't really count that as a complaint. That's just my rule. But because I don't emphasize it, I don't carry on with it, But man, the traffic, some of the way people drive, I just don't understand. Anyway, so being unconscious competency, though, to being competent at our thoughts and to be competent at our feelings as to what we want to draw into our lives. When I look at that whole big realm and that big picture of what we're talking about today, I'm thinking what we're really talking about is faith and trust. Faith and trust really are how we're going to become unconsciously competent at providing the positive words and thoughts that we want to have in our lives. The way we look at life is the way that life looks at us. We can't get around that. And we talked about this one other week, that some folks seem to have a propensity to say the glass is half full or half empty. And, if we're one of those people that have that, the glass is just it's half empty, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? And we go into this mode of fear and fright and, what's going to happen? Or we can look at the same exact thing and say, wow, look at that. There's half of it still left. What are we going to do with that? How much can we do with all of that? It's just a total mindset. As I was writing out these notes, I'm sipping my coffee. And I had a coffee cup that had a little saying on it, and it's attributed to Abraham Lincoln. I'm not sure that that's really true, but it says Abraham Lincoln, and it said, "We can complain because rose bushes have thorns, or rejoice because thorn bushes have roses." I have beautiful thorn bushes in my yard, and I love them. I encourage them to have their roses come out by watering them and feeding them and so forth. We have to remember that, in a way, we are hardwired sometimes with that frightful mode of worrying, thinking about the worst. When evidently they said in the caveman and maybe in our DNA such, we have that fight or flight or There's three of them. Fight, flight, and what?
Freeze.
Freeze. That's it. Thank you. That was it. I knew somebody here knew it. And so we go into those modes kind of almost automatically and stop breathing, hold our breath and the whole bit. And so we want to make sure that, well, I recognize that's happening. Okay, but where can I go from there? I don't have to stay there. I wanted to share with you, I hope that it will help you. Try to get yourself into that mode of trust and faith and knowing that there is something within us and all around us that is for us. That life energy is for us. And so I'm going to share with you something that I've added to my morning routine. I read several things, as you probably know. And this is called A Treatment for General Good. It was written by Frederick Bales, one of the teachers that we were studying a few months ago. It says, "This day I face toward the dawn of the infinite healing presence." All those are capitalized, by the way, infinite healing presence. "I recognize it like the sun coming over the hills in an ever-glowing sense of warmth, light, and life. As I share the sun's rays by placing myself where they can play freely upon me, so I now place myself in the attitude of receptiveness to the infinite healing presence whose activity I welcome. I bathe my consciousness in its steady, serene, healing rays. I relinquish all personal struggle and effort, allowing myself to be played upon by that which is bringing healing and fulfillment in its invisible rays. And it is so." Just to say that every morning, feel the energy that those words are giving you. I love the song that we had about the rain washing us and freeing us. And then we can use that also, that analogy of that sun lighting us up, giving us that what we have need of at every moment. It's fantastic when we can remember to trust life, trust reality, trust in the unseen. One of the things that I've been doing lately, and I'm inviting you, if you haven't already, to join me, is listening and participating in Deepak Chopra's 21-day free meditations. This time they're on relationships. And we're into the second week of it now. It's a 3-week thing to 21 days. And the first week was pretty much emphasizing the relationship that we have with self. Because what we have with self is what is going to be reflected out in the outer. And then this week we're starting really into our relationships, what we are, how are we relating to the other people around us. And he had this wonderful quote from Khalil Gibran that said, "The reality of the other person is not what he reveals to you, but in what he cannot reveal to you. Therefore, if you would understand him, listen not to what he says, but rather to what he does not say." This is picking up on that heart energy, on that unseen energy that we all have, that speaks to us in a different language than English or Hispanic, whatever language physically you speak. That heart language is universal. And when we stop and give someone else our attention, to open our heart and listen to their heart, they may not be verbalizing what they're actually thinking and feeling, but when we go into that feeling nature of our own, we pick up on it. We get that communication, and we give the other person the honor to give them our time, to give them our energy, to give them our attention. That's what so many of us want, is to be heard and to be acknowledged and be seen. And for us just to be in that moment, whoever we're talking with, for just It might be just a few sentences. To give our undivided attention to that person. Isn't that what we all want in life? And that's what we're doing, is we're coming from our heart space. We're coming from trusting what it is that is breathing us, that is beating our hearts. We're trusting that. And not worrying about all the agenda that I have, that I quote unquote have to do today. If the universe is bringing me something else, let me look at it. Let me be available to it. I wanted to share with you the reading from Opening Doors, July 23rd. It says, "Wake up and live. Live that full and glorious life which is your true heritage. Be afraid of nothing. You have within you all wisdom, all power, all strength, and all understanding. Pluck out those weeds of doubt, fear, and uncertainty so that they cannot choke the beautiful garden deep within you, and all the very best is allowed to grow in true freedom and perfection. Realize that which is within so that it is reflected without. You cannot hide it, no matter how hard you may try to do so. If there is chaos and confusion within you, it will be reflected in the outer world by the way you look, the way you behave, by the things you do, and by what you have around you. You cannot hide what is within, no matter how hard you try. When your thoughts are of the highest beauty and perfection are reflected without. You are like a mirror which has been highly polished. Nothing can remain hidden." Our work is to go within, to know what we are, this beautiful energy and essence that we are within, and to get friends with it, to listen with our heart to what does this energy have to tell me today. That's how I am going to experience and be unconsciously competent in living the life that the freedom and spirit has for me to live. When we do that, what happens? We become available. In fact, we are using our OR. How many of us were here last week when I told you about what the OR is? Open, available, and receptive. When we are open, available, and receptive, we are using our oar in life to merrily row our boat down the stream. Let's go ahead and keep those oars handy. Open, available, and receptive. To be unconsciously competent in rowing our boats merrily down the stream of life takes practice. It takes discipline, it takes diligence, it takes doing it, because we get so caught up in what is right in front of us. You know, whatever is going on, whatever drama is happening, it sucks us in. We have to stand strong in where we're at, knowing that each and every one of us is on our own perfect course. We can't row somebody else's boat. We are in our own avenue, our own lane of rowing our own boat. I think I shared with you, I'm about halfway through Michael Singer's experiment. That's the Surrender Experiment. It's actually a biography, an autobiography of his life. Michael Singer wrote, what I was more familiar with was the book Untethered Soul. It was the first book that I read of his. This is the story of his life. And he, I think he's probably around my age, because he was talking about, he was in college in the early 70s. And very brilliant man. He was going to, I forget which college it was, but he was getting his PhD on a fellowship, his PhD in mathematics. Very smart guy. And yet he was hounded by this voice that was inside of him that just was driving him nuts. Just it kept incessantly talking all the time, telling him this and this, and it just, he was like, I gotta get this thing to stop bothering me. Well, he discovered yoga and meditation. And when he discovered that he could quiet that incessant mind chatter. And so he made a diligent practice. He was a hippie. He had the long ponytail, he had the Volkswagen van, he lived out of, the whole bit. But he meditated and he did his yoga several hours a day, twice a day. We're talking a couple, 2 or 3 hours, literally at a time. And he would work. What ended up happening is he would listen to his still small voice, and then whatever life presented, he wouldn't argue with it. He's surrendering to whatever life is coming up. I'm going to share more details about it, but what amazes me about it is that he got in sync with using his oar. He was open, available, and receptive. And I had no idea. I just thought he was an author. He wrote this book. I didn't know anything about him at all. And the way his life unfolded was nothing short of miraculous. But it takes, and each of us can do that, you see, and all of us have whatever we're interested in, what we can do. We have to be strong in that knowing, though, and we have to be strong in seeing, honestly, the glass half full. Look at the positive of what's going on in your life and emphasize that. Because what happens? In this teaching, we know, hello, what you look at, what you think about, magnifies, multiplies. Let's think about and magnify and multiply the good stuff, the fun stuff. Yes, that's what I want. I'm going to the game today, and I know the Padres are going to win. Okay, anyway, I wanted to share with you a story. I shared this several years ago, but I think it fits here today, and I think I wanted to share it with you again. It's the story of a young bride named Thelma Thompson. This is a true story. She went to live with her husband, who was stationed in a U.S. Army training camp near the Mojave Desert in California during World War II. From the first day, she hated the place. She hated the dust, the loneliness, the tiny shack in which they had to live, the unbearable heat, 125 degrees in the shade of a cactus, and the relentless wind. There was no one to talk to but the native people, and they couldn't speak English. She had a powerful faith that she was in a living hell, and it wasn't about to change. Any of you had that experience?
No.
No. Finally, she became so utterly wrenched, so full of self-pity, that she wrote her parents and told them she was coming home. Her father answered her letter with just 2 lines, which Thelma says will always sing in her memory, which she says completely altered her life. He wrote, 2 men looked out from prison bars. One saw the mud, the other saw the stars. According to Thelma, she read those 2 lines over and over until she determined to find the good in her situation. She made up her mind to look for the stars. She made her mind to approach life with a sense of faith and trust that there was a reason for all of this happening, and that the reason at its heart was compassionate and good. Tentatively, she reached out to the natives, and in her surprise, they received her overtures toward friendship warmly. When she showed interest in their weaving and pottery, they gave her presents of their favorite pieces which they refused to sell to the tourists. She studied until she became an expert on the various forms of cactus and the yuccas and the Joshua trees. She learned about prairie dogs, watched the desert sunsets, and hunted for seashells that had been left there when the sands of the desert had been an ocean floor. The Mojave Desert didn't change. The Indians didn't change. The wind still blew incessantly. The temperatures continued to reach 125 degrees, and the tiny shack in which she lived with her husband was still catastrophic. But over time, none of that mattered anymore, because Thelma had redirected her faith. By redirecting her faith, she transformed a wretched experience into what she later described as the most exciting adventure of her life. Instead of wallowing in self-pity, she wrote a book, a novel, about the desert, which was published under the title Bright Ramparts, which brought her some degree of success and personal satisfaction. She looked out from her self-made prison and put her faith in the stars instead of in the mud. We are all at that choice as to look at what life is presenting to us and look for the gifts that it is giving us. Look to open our hearts and listen to life with that open heart. Listen to others with an open heart, for we are all God in expression. Be open and receptive to what it is that life is presenting to me now. Let's get our oars out. Let's be open and receptive to what life is giving me. Let us rejoice in thorn bushes. How great are they? We need to practice at being open and receptive, available all the time. And then you know what will happen? We are going to be unconsciously competent at living the fullest life that we can experience, a grand life. Each will be different, each will be unique. There's no comparisons. So I want you to get out your oars, and you're just going to merrily go down the stream of life this week, recognizing that life is giving you so much. And be happy with it. Happy with that half full of glass. What are we going to do with the rest of it? And so it is. Namaste.
Thank you.